Every morning you wake up, whether you know it or not, you step into the battlefield of life with 3 invisible decisions already forming in your mind. Decisions that shape your day, your habits, your future. These decisions are not made once in a lifetime. They are made daily, consistently, silently, but their consequences shout through the outcomes of your life. Let me tell you something critical. Your life is not the result of your conditions. It is the result of your decisions. You can be born in poverty, raised in obscurity, and still rise to authority, not because of luck, but because of choice. Destiny is not a mystery. It's a product of deliberate direction. Think about this. You don't decide your future. You decide your habits, and your habits decide your future. Every day, you are writing the next chapter of your life, not with a pen, but with decisions. There are people more talented than you, more connected than you, more educated than you. But they don't win because of talent or access. They win because they decide better. Life doesn't reward who you are. It rewards what you do consistently with who you are. Every single day, before you speak a word, before you take a step, before anyone sees your actions, there is a silent, powerful decision you make. What you choose to believe. This one decision is not loud, it's not public, but it is potent. Because what you choose to believe about yourself, about your future, about your God, and about your circumstances determines how you behave. The Bible says in Proverbs 23:7, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. Not so he becomes, so he is. That means your belief is not something separate from you. Your belief is you. If you believe you are incapable, you will behave like you are incapable. If you believe you are unworthy, you will act in ways that reinforce that unworthiness. If you believe nothing will change, you will unconsciously sabotage every opportunity for change. It is not your background that limits you, it is your belief system. That's why God never changes a man's life until he changes his mind. When God called Gideon in Judges 6, he didn't send an army. He didn't give him weapons. He gave him a word, mighty man of valor. But Gideon didn't believe it. He said, my family is the weakest in Manasseh, and I am the least in my father's house. Do you see it? God was trying to upgrade his future, but Gideon's belief system was anchored in inferiority. And until he shifted what he believed, he could not step into what he was called to do. You see, life doesn't respond to your needs. It responds to your beliefs. There are people who need change, who want success, who crave love, but they are imprisoned by the beliefs they have rehearsed for years. Some of us have believed lies since childhood. You'll never amount to anything. You're just like your father. No one from around here makes it out. And the tragedy is we stopped fighting those thoughts and started agreeing with them. What have you agreed with that is beneath your destiny? What beliefs are you holding on to that God never spoke over you? The enemy's greatest weapon is not a demon. It's deception. If he can get you to believe less than what God said, he doesn't need to block you. You will block yourself. Let me give you a real life picture. Imagine a circus elephant. When it is young, they tie a heavy chain to its leg and fasten it to a deep stake in the ground. The baby elephant struggles and pulls, but eventually gives up. Over time, they replace that chain with a small rope. That grown elephant, strong enough to rip trees from the ground, won't even try to move. Why? Because it believes it can't. And that belief, not the rope, keeps it bound. How many people are living like that elephant? Chained not by reality, but by memory, by old conclusions, by false identities, by past failures they've mistaken for permanent truth. That's why Romans 12:2 commands us, do not conform to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Transformation doesn't begin with doing. It begins with believing differently. Every decision you make flows from a belief. If you believe you're always broke, you will never save. If you believe you're not leadership material, you will never step up. If you believe you're not worthy of love, you will settle for abuse. It's not your environment, it's your internal environment that drives your life. So I ask you today, what do you really believe? Not what you say in church, not what you post on social media, but when you're alone with your thoughts, what do you believe about your purpose, about your identity, about what's possible for you? Because God has already spoken. He says you are fearfully and wonderfully made. He says you are more than a conqueror. He says He has plans for you, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, to give you hope and a future. But here's the catch. It will never manifest until you believe it. Faith is not magic. Faith is alignment. When your belief lines up with God's truth, your behavior begins to produce the fruit of that truth. You walk differently, you talk differently, you handle rejection differently, you manage time differently. Because belief is the root and behavior is the fruit. If you want to change your life, don't start with your actions, start with your beliefs. Challenge every thought that contradicts the voice of God. Refuse to rehearse the lie one more day. Every morning ask yourself, what am I choosing to believe today? Because that choice is not just spiritual, it's strategic. It's not just emotional, it's generational. And if you change that one choice, you can change your whole life. Every day when you wake up, you are given one of the most powerful and limited resources in the universe, your attention. What you give your attention to is not just about focus, it is about direction. Because whatever gets your attention gets your energy. And whatever gets your energy begins to shape your outcomes. You cannot give your attention to everything, but you are always giving it to something, and that one choice is designing your destiny. Quietly, but powerfully. This is why the enemy doesn't always need to destroy you. He just needs to distract you. He doesn't need to stop your gift. He just needs to keep your attention on things that drain it. Your mind is your greatest battlefield, and attention is the gate. If you don't guard it, you will spend years climbing the wrong mountain, achieving the wrong goals, and investing in relationships that lead you nowhere. The book of Proverbs warns us in 4:25-27. Let your eyes look straight ahead. Fix your gaze directly before you. Give careful thought to the paths for your feet. Do not swerve to the right or the left. That is not just poetic advice. It is divine strategy. God is telling us your destiny is too important to be led by distraction. You can't afford to give your attention to drama, gossip, fear, or anxiety, and then wonder why your life feels chaotic. You can't feed your mind on failure, comparison, and negativity, then expect to wake up motivated. What you consume consistently is what you create unconsciously. Let me make it plain. Have you ever driven a car and looked too long at something on the side of the road, maybe a billboard or someone walking? What happens? The car begins to drift in that direction, not because you wanted to go there, but because your attention did. That's a law of motion. You move where you look. And the same law governs your life. You move in the direction of your dominant focus. So if your attention is on who hurt you, you're living backward. If your attention is always on what's missing, you're blind to what's possible. If your attention is locked on the temporary, you're robbing your future. And the danger is you can become faithful to the wrong thing. We live in a world fighting for your attention. Social media, news cycles, advertising, even people around you. Everyone wants a piece of your focus, but if you give it away freely, you are trading your purpose for noise. And the tragedy is, Many people are dying with potential still buried inside them, not because they weren't gifted, but because they spent their life paying attention to the wrong things. Ask yourself, what's been consuming my attention lately? Is it helping me grow? Is it feeding my purpose? Is it aligned with the life God showed me? Because if the answer is no, then every day I give it my attention. I give it permission to shape my life. Jesus was a master of focused attention. In Luke 9:51, it says, he set his face toward Jerusalem. He knew where he was going, and he refused to be distracted. The crowds wanted to crown him. The Pharisees wanted to trap him. The disciples wanted him to slow down. But his attention was locked on the cross. Why? Because he understood his assignment. That's the key. Clarity of assignment leads to clarity of attention. When you don't know where you're going, anything can become a distraction. But when you know your calling, you become selective about what gets your gaze. You stop feeding what doesn't feed you. You stop entertaining what drains your oil, because your future is worth the discipline of focused attention. Here's a practical truth. You can't always control what's around you, but you can always choose what you give your attention to. David said in Psalm 121:1, I lift up my eyes to the hills. From where comes my help? In other words, I choose to redirect my gaze. I refuse to be consumed by what's beneath me when help comes from above me. Attention is a form of worship. Whatever you give it to consistently, you elevate. That's why Jesus said in Matthew 6:21, where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. You don't even have to love something to be shaped by it. Just keep looking at it long enough. Eventually, your heart will follow your eyes. So again, I ask, what has your attention? Is it fear or is it faith? Is it people's opinions or God's truth? Is it your past or your purpose? Because the answer to that question reveals not just where you are, but where you're going. If you want to change your life, start by changing your gaze. Every day, without realizing it, you are making a profound decision that echoes through every area of your life. It's the decision of identity, who you decide to become. This isn't about titles or roles. It's not about what you do. It's about who you are becoming. And that decision, whether made consciously or passively, governs what you accept, what you reject, what you tolerate, and what you pursue. Your standards, your associations, your disciplines, they all bow to your self-perception. In the book of Genesis, when God formed man, he didn't give Adam a job before he gave him an identity. He said, let us make man in our image after our likeness. That was identity. Before Adam was ever tasked to manage the garden, he was told who he was. Why? Because identity must precede responsibility. If you don't know who you are, you will mishandle what you're given. But the problem today is not a lack of opportunity. It's an identity crisis. People are chasing success without knowing if success even fits who they are. We're mimicking others, measuring ourselves by standards we didn't design, accepting relationships that violate our value because we haven't stopped to decide, who am I becoming? Every decision in your day flows from the version of you that you've accepted. If you believe you are average, you will settle. If you see yourself as a survivor, you will keep bracing for pain instead of preparing for victory. But if you begin to see yourself as someone with a divine assignment, a unique imprint, a reason for being, then everything changes. You become more intentional with your yes and more powerful with your no. There's a story in the book of Daniel that illustrates this truth. When Daniel and his friends were taken into Babylon, they were given new names, new clothes, new diets. Everything around them tried to redefine who they were. But Daniel purposed in his heart that he would not defile himself. That was a decision of identity. He knew, I may be in Babylon, but Babylon is not in me. And because he decided who he was, he also decided what he would allow. You see, when you know who you are, you don't have to explain your standards. You don't argue with people about your values. You don't entertain environments that offend your calling. You simply live from a place of settled identity. And that makes you dangerous to anything designed to distract you. Think of it like this. A thermostat doesn't react to the environment, it sets it. When you haven't decided who you are, you live like a thermometer, changing with every situation, adapting to every opinion. But when you operate from identity, you become the thermostat. You influence, you shift, you lead. So here's the challenge. Have you really decided who you are becoming? Or are you just becoming whatever life throws at you? Because if you don't make the decision intentionally, life will make it for you by default. You will become shaped by pressure instead of by purpose. Jesus, when he was baptized, hadn't performed a single miracle yet. But the heavens opened and the Father said, "This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased." Notice, identity was affirmed before activity. God didn't wait until Jesus did something to call him son. He established identity first. And because Jesus knew who he was, he could endure wilderness, rejection, betrayal, because his identity wasn't tied to circumstances. It was tied to the voice of his Father. That's the model. You don't wait for validation from others to decide who you are. You don't need applause to activate purpose. You don't need comfort to walk in conviction. You need clarity. Because when your identity is clear, your decisions are strong. Let me give you a real-world picture. A lion doesn't need to roar to be a lion. It doesn't need to prove itself in the jungle. It walks with a presence because its identity informs its posture. And that's how you must live. Not trying to convince others of your worth, but walking with the awareness that your existence is evidence that a problem needed solving and you were God's answer. Every day you are shaping your identity by what you entertain, what you tolerate, and what you speak over yourself. That means you must protect your self-defense like a treasure. You must audit your words. Am I speaking like the person I want to become? Audit your relationships. Do these people support or sabotage the identity I'm stepping into? Audit your choices. Would the future version of me thank me for this decision? Because the truth is, you don't attract what you want, you attract who you are. And if you want to change what you're attracting, change who you're becoming. Everything about your life, where you're going, what you experience, who you become, flows from 3 daily decisions: what you believe, what you give your attention to, and who you decide to become. These are not casual choices. They are the quiet architects of your destiny. If you change them, you can shift your entire life. God has already placed greatness inside you, but He won't force you to activate it. That's your responsibility. So I challenge you today, believe higher, focus sharper, and choose identity over insecurity. The future is not waiting for you to arrive, it's waiting for you to decide. Thank you for your attention, your time, and your heart. May wisdom guide your beliefs, clarity guard your focus, and purpose fuel your identity. Good luck on your journey. And remember, you're not waiting on life. Life is waiting on you.